Hey, what's going on? I'm Matt O'Leary back with another video, and today we'll be talking tight ends. Before we get started, just wanted to mention you can follow me on social media at Matt O'Leary NY. Subscribe to the podcast wherever it is you get your podcast, and live stream tomorrow, Sunday at 9:30 p.m. We will be breaking down a free agency preview. You can ask me your questions, send in your super chats, all that fun stuff. All right, so let's talk about some tight ends. This is potentially a need for the New York Jets. I still really like Chris Herndon, but I think it would be naive for the Jets to go into the season with Chris Herndon and Ryan Griffin. I think Griffin's done, to be completely honest with you. I don't think he is healthy enough to play the position anymore. So the Jets could absolutely look to improve this position in both free agency or the draft. So let's just talk some free agents and some that would be a nice fit. We'll start with the big fish. And to me, the guy that I want the most is Jonnu Smith, who's 26 years old, from the Tennessee Titans. PFF grades the last 3 years, 75-2, 72, and 55-1. He had a pretty limited role over the last few years, but he is productive when he does get the ball. 448 yards and 8 touchdowns on just 65 targets. The last 2 years combined, 76 receptions, 887 yards, and 11 touchdowns. If you feed him, I think he will be extremely productive. And I think it'd be a lot of fun to see him and Herndon potentially put them both on the field at the same time, something we were begging Adam Gase to do with Ryan Griffin and Chris Herndon, but he just very rarely ever did. I think he'd come in right around $8 million a year, which is an intriguing cost. It's not over the top. It's a little bit pricey, especially if you want to keep Chris Herndon around and potentially have to pay him. But I definitely think it's something that would work well in this new offense. So I would absolutely consider going for a guy like Jonnu Smith. Next up, Hunter Henry, just 26 years old from the Chargers, 69-3, 73-2, and 53-3. Pro Football Focus grades over the last few years. He had 613 yards last year and 4 touchdowns on 60 catches, 93 targets, so he gets targeted a lot. He has missed some time, though. He missed all of 2018. He played 12 games in 2019 and 14 games in 2020. So he missed 4 and 2 games over the last 2 years after missing all of 2018. I think he's probably going to cost you $10.5 million. The name recognition's there a little bit more, so I think he's going to get paid. He probably is the best tight end on the market. So to me, I think I would avoid going for Hunter Henry. Not that I don't like him, but I just think for the cost, you can get a more cost-effective player with Jonnu Smith or the next guy that I'm going to talk about on my list. All right, next up is Gerald Everett from the Rams. He's 27 years old, 61-3, 76, and 76-5 Pro Football Focus grades over the last 3 years. He had just 41 receptions, but 417 yards and a touchdown. He was used in a very limited role with the Rams over the last 3 years, but he's someone who I think could thrive in a more expanded role. I think he's done well out there with the Rams, and we know that McVay and LaFleur come from pretty much the same Shanahan tree. So I am extremely excited to see what a player like Everett could do in this offense that the Jets are going to be running. I think it could work, and he's probably going to come in around $7 million. I think that would be, pretty decent value. I think he's a pretty good player, but of the big fish group, Jonnu Smith seems to make the most sense in my eyes. Then I'd go Everett and Hunter Henry 3 behind them. Mid-tier options. These two guys that I want to talk about in the mid-tier are a little bit older, but if you want to bring in a veteran with a younger guy like Herndon, I can maybe get behind that. First one's Kyle Rudolph, who was just released. He's 31 years old. He played with the Vikings his entire career. 66-5, 73, and 63-6 over the last 3 years. 28 receptions for 334 yards and 1 touchdown in 12 games this year. Look, he's not the player that he once was 3 years ago, but is he still an option that could be okay in a split role with Chris Herndon? Yeah, I think he probably could. And especially if you're going to get him at, what do you think it would cost, $4 million maybe, AAV, to get him to come in here on a 1-year deal? I would highly consider it. Again, I don't think you sign him expecting to put up 600 plus receiving yards, but if he give you 400 yards in, a similar numbers, 28 receptions, something like that, I think it could be interesting. I would take a look if you want to go mid-tier for sure at a guy like Kyle Rudolph. The second mid-tier guy that I have is Jared Cook. Now, he's a little bit older. He's 34 years old, 69-3, 78-3, and 75-5 Pro Football Focus grades over the last 3 years. He had 504 yards and 7 touchdowns on 37 receptions last year. He's bounced around the league a lot, spending the last couple of years with the Saints, but he's a productive player. And I know he's getting up there in age, but again, similar to Kyle Rudolph on a 1-year deal, maybe I'd consider doing it. $5 million, I think, will probably get it done. He's probably a better all-around tight end than Kyle Rudolph at this point in his career. And Cook still has some speed. So I'm intrigued with his upside even at his advanced age, which is 34 years old, talking about advanced age, but it is in the NFL and for a tight end. So I would consider it, but not my favorite option. And I have a couple bargain bin options for the New York Jets if they want to shop there. First is Trey Burton, who's 29 years old. Now, he is someone who was a lot more productive with the Eagles than he was with the last couple of years. Last three Pro Football Focus grades, 69.9, 49.2, and 68.4. 250 yards, 3 touchdowns on 28 receptions last year. Again, good player in Philly a few years ago. He's actually part of the Philly special, so he's going to live in Philadelphia lore there. There is the Joe Douglas connection, so maybe he does want to bring in a cheap guy like that, but was not good in Chicago before he moved to Indy this last year, and he was okay. He wasn't great, but if you can get him for $2 or $3 million on a 1-year prove-it deal, might be an intriguing option to pair with a guy like Chris Herndon in a limited role. The last guy on my list I think is really interesting value, and that's Dan Arnold. He's 26 years old, played last year with the Arizona Cardinals in his first time in a little bit of an expanded role. He was pretty good. 61.7 Pro Football Focus grade, 71.7 the year before that, and 68 in 2018. This was his first year that he had some legitimate action. He did have a little bit of time with the Saints in 2019, but with the Cardinals, 31 receptions, 438 yards, and 4 touchdowns with Kyler Murray. I think he's someone who could get even better in an expanded role, and he's still a young player. Like, he's going to be 26. So if you're telling me that I could potentially have Chris Herndon, again, who's someone I'm still high on, I think he could be a productive player, especially in this offense, and with a good coaching staff, and pair him with another up-and-coming tight end like Dan Arnold on the cheap, I can maybe get behind that, especially if you say I don't want to allocate the $8 million that it's going to take to bring in a guy like Jonnu Smith. As much as I love Jonnu Smith and I think he is the number one choice, you could sell me on the logic of going in the bargain bin for tight end and spending bigger money on offensive line, corner, edge, and so on and so forth as we go down the line. So these are really my tight end targets for the New York Jets in free agency. Let me know in the comments down below if there's anyone I missed. Like, I don't think Rob Gronkowski's coming here. He's either going to play for Tampa Bay or retire again, so he didn't make my list. But if there's someone else who you think, hey, maybe the Jets should take a look, let me know in the comments or on social media at Matt O'Leary NY. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll talk to you next time.